A few days back, I wrapped up my morning shift without a thought about my father-in-law. After enjoying a cup of tea, I checked my partner assignment and walked out of the police station towards our patrol car. To my surprise, there stood my father-in-law. He wasn't approaching me for a conversation, but his proximity allowed me to hear him. He brought up my wife and a request for money. Despite noticing him, I chose to completely disregard his presence. I strode past him without uttering a word, heading directly to the patrol car to begin my shift. My apparent indifference clearly infuriated him. He stepped back slightly, waiting until we were in the car. Just before starting the engine, he seized a stone and hurled it towards our windshield. Fortunately, the glass cracked but held, sparing me from a face full of shards. I was the one driving, not my partner. Evidently, his throw had been aimed squarely at the driver's seat where I sat. Eventually, he realized the folly of attacking a police car right in front of two officers and a police station. He turned on his heels and fled. Reacting swiftly, I leaped out of the car and pursued him. The chase didn't last long, merely stretching to the nearby park, a stone's throw from the station. Upon catching up to him, he embarked on a shocking course of action. My father-in-law had no intentions of submitting to being handcuffed quietly. He collapsed onto the ground and commenced a frantic plea for help, crying out loudly. Despite the early hour, a considerable number of people had already gathered around. Among them were joggers, dog walkers, and those simply passing through. His shouts reverberated with declarations such as, "Kind people, please help me. I'm being mistreated. Call the police. This officer isn't legitimate. He's attempting to abduct me." His desperate cries caught everyone's attention in the park. Men, women, children, and even animals, dogs, cats, and squirrels turned their gaze towards us. Every single person in the vicinity was fixated on the scene. Perhaps one might assume that as a young man, I could easily restrain him, given his older age. However, the situation wasn't as straightforward as it might seem. I experienced physical aggression when he struck and bit me. Additionally, he resorted to spitting during the altercation. The fight escalated with him delivering numerous forceful and painful kicks. While I felt justified in using a taser at that point, I refrained from doing so. Fortunately, my partner arrived in a car, offering valuable assistance that enabled us to eventually handcuff him. The subsequent challenge emerged when we attempted to place him inside our patrol car, which resembles a van with a rear compartment fitted with a bench and a cage-like enclosure. My father-in-law strongly resisted cooperating, even while being handcuffed, and resorted to forcefully kicking the door. We were compelled to position his legs wide apart to prevent him from entering. Even after we successfully managed to get him inside, he'd obstructed the closure of the door by placing his feet in its path. Throughout this ordeal, he continued to vociferate that we were causing him harm and that our actions were unjustified. Paradoxically, he was both breaking the law and demanding assistance from the official authorities. In all my years as a law enforcement officer, I've never encountered a situation quite like this. While I've dealt with numerous cases involving aggressive, peculiar, and intoxicated individuals, this particular incident stands out as remarkably absurd. We transported him to the police station, but encountered considerable difficulty coaxing him out of the car. He clung to the bars, necessitating us to physically remove him. Upon arrival at the station, he immediately insisted on meeting with the captain. Our attempts to explain that the captain wouldn't intervene fell on deaf ears as he asserted his right to consult a superior, technically a valid claim. Subsequently, we endeavored to either arrange a meeting with the captain or finalize the procedure, an idea met with his displeasure. The father-in-law expressed his intention to file a complaint against me, accusing me of abusing my authority and employing unnecessary force, disregarding his elderly status. Amidst his resistance, I employed the necessary force to position him inside the car. In response, the captain requested access to my body camera footage, a practice we regularly followed to document incidents. This serves to address conflicting accounts between suspects and officers. Consequently, the captain played the recording to the other detainees and queried the father-in-law about the events depicted. And she was blatantly disregarding my commands while on camera. The father-in-law remarked, "That's me looking out for myself, a survival instinct kicking in. I even fear he might draw a gun and aim it at me." The captain intervened, clarifying, "No, this is your resistance against lawful arrest. When an officer issues an authoritative order, compliance is expected. Failure to comply grants the officer the right to use proportionate force for the arrest." The father-in-law then exclaimed, "This is appalling. I won't take directives from this individual," casting an intense glare my way. He faced charges of vandalism, evading the police, resisting arrest, and assaulting an officer. As he was being led to confinement, he suddenly complained of feeling unwell. He claimed a headache, dizziness, high blood pressure, and requested an ambulance. It was evident to everyone that he was feigning illness. Nevertheless, to ensure accuracy and prevent any potential issues upon arrival at the prison, an ambulance was summoned. Paramedics arrived, conducted an assessment, and as suspected, he was in perfect health. His heart rate and blood pressure were normal. Perhaps he was unaware that even if he had been taken to the hospital, an officer would have accompanied him throughout. Once he recovered, his prison transfer would proceed as planned. There was no escaping the consequences if he had entertained that thought. Following the departure of the ambulance, our composed captain displayed noticeable irritation due to the father-in-law's antics. He expressed, "Is the circus over, or are you aiming to continue this nonsensical show?" In response, the father-in-law inquired whether I would be punished. The captain promptly replied that no punitive action would be taken against me for simply performing my duty. At this juncture, the father-in-law directed an inappropriate question at the captain. "Are you gay?" Stunned, I couldn't fathom that he had posed such a query to a captain. While aware of his sexual orientation, the question was out of line. The captain ordered the immediate transfer of the father-in-law to prison, despite his audacity. He persisted in requesting a phone call to reach his daughter, aiming to secure bail through her. I couldn't comprehend his assumption that my girlfriend would bail him out this time, which she hadn't done so previously. I contacted her beforehand, conveying news of his arrest. Her reaction appeared somewhat pleased, indicating her exhaustion with his behavior. The captain extended an invitation to my friend, proposing that she visit the station to view the recording if she wished. However, we were not inclined to reveal the recording, and its disclosure was deemed unnecessary. Subsequently, my girlfriend received a call from her father-in-law, wherein she declined to provide bail assistance. Consequently, he must remain incarcerated until his trial, given his prior criminal history. It would be astonishing if he manages to avoid imprisonment on this occasion. It's difficult to fathom that he would place his own daughter in such an unusual predicament, only to find himself now facing the consequences of his actions in a correctional facility.